So catch nuts.
But they don't understand, y'all.
This is the CS Podcast. Here's your hosts, Cass Scarab and Numbskill.
So I guess to start this off, thank you all for showing up today for, I'd say, this first podcast of its kind here on Cascade Studios, and I know that Numbskill's already put one or two pieces of Bionicle content on his main channel. He also has a secondary channel called Titan Icarus. Titan Icarus, yeah. And so you guys can check out his Bionicle content there. Today's discussion, we're going to be talking about why Wave 2 of Bionicle didn't do, or not Wave 2, but Generation 2 didn't do as well as Generation 1. Both Numbskill and I here are really big fans of the Bionicle franchise, and to see it go so suddenly is kind of troubling amongst us as well as a good majority of the fan base. So, Numbskill, any thoughts?
Well, the cancellation of Bionicle Generation 2 did kind of shock me. I mean, at first they did say that Bionicle Generation 2 was going to last about 3 years, where instead it lasted just about 2 years. So that's 1 year short of what they originally planned. But also at the same time, the reason why it failed is also because a lot of people in this generation don't exactly understand what Bionicle really means to a lot of people who grew up with Bionicle. So that's another reason why not a lot of people from the new generation bought the Bionicle sets like we did. I mean, I don't even have all the Generation 2 sets yet either, but I'm gonna work my best to get those.
Yeah, I'm currently trying to actually, I just ordered Ikimu, the Mask Maker. I just ordered that set.
I'm actually just about to order that too.
Oh, nice. Nice. I mean, I know. I mean, but hey, those transparent colors, though, I mean, those are amazing. I mean, you can't go wrong with how they designed that. I mean, I also am going to try focusing... I'm not really so into the whole villains of Generation 2, just because they didn't really appeal to me as much as the heroes. But I really want to focus on getting the Nuva or form of the heroes, maybe as well as the elemental beasts or creatures. I definitely want to make that on my wish list of things to get for Bionicle Generation 2, because it's like, overall, in my opinion, it wasn't the idea of how the toys were designed. It wasn't the toys. They were designed perfect, in my opinion. They were great.
The CCBS system was used to its fullest potential, and the way that they added new pieces in the second year was just perfect. People, old Bionicle fans, including myself, were really happy that they're getting to the more complicated builds, and that's usually what we love having, is the complicated builds and not the simple ones.
Yeah.
But then again, the first Wave 1 G2 sets were actually really good, and I got all 13 of them.
Yeah, you got all 13. I only got, like, people can see this in my 200 subscribers video, but I got all 6 of the G2 Wave 1 Toa, and then I just got Ikimu in his shorter form, as well as Skull Grinder. I wasn't really, when it came to that set, I wasn't really in it for Skull Grinder. I was really more in it for Ikimu and the Mask of Creation, just because.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. But, yeah, I find that the builds for G2 were just amazing, but I feel like where one of the flaws was about Generation 2 is I feel like they just didn't market it as well as they did in Generation 1. I feel like that was one of the biggest flaws that LEGO had, in my opinion. Just because it's like with Generation 1, we had like a lot of marketing for it. There wasn't only just the toys, but there was the books, there was the t-shirts, the comics, There was
The
even
movies and the games.
yeah, the movies, the games. They even had bands like Cryo Shell, and they even had All American Rejects at one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those two songs are still in my head. They're really good.
Oh yeah. So I mean, Generation 1 had all of that, but they also had a lot more time to build on that kind of reputation. As where Generation 2, it kind of caught itself, in my opinion, in a really tough spot, especially in the Lego community. As of now.
Because if they started off where they left off for Bionicle, if they did that, then new people for the franchise would be like, "What's going on? What is this? Did I miss out on all these other stuff?" So they wanted to start off from scratch, but also keep the original heroes in mind.
Yeah.
So the creative process, like all the concept art that they've been uploading on their Facebook pages and Twitter and all that stuff, they're really well made and they're really well done. And I can see the creative team put a lot of time and effort into making the new forms for the Toa, especially for the Wave 1 as well. Because their masks are, some of them are very similar to the originals, but some of them are very different.
Yeah, very true.
Like, Kopaka's mask is easily recognizable because it looks almost exactly like the first one.
Yeah, as well as Tahu's, and I would have to say Anua's.
Yeah, those two.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a little bit of a resemblance with Liwa to a degree, but, and then same with Poatu. Poatu's kind of recognizable, but I mean, it's in some senses to Wave 1 of Generation 2 was that their builds were all different in terms of how they were built. I mean, very slightly, they all had different heights, they all had different kind of actual, like, builds, kind of like it's like, even though they're plastic, or their plastic is supposed to resemble metal, the way that their parts were laid out onto this, onto how they were built, it kind of made it look like they all had different muscle builds, too. Like, some were tall and thin, some were stocky, some were kind of, like, in the mix of things. And then, what I really liked, too, about Wave 1 of G2 was how they also gave Golly a more feminine appearance, which, I mean, even though that the idea of Bionicle is to kind of keep things so they're more general neutral parts, it's like the way that they just laid out her character with the rounder leg plating, and also, you know, just the more, I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of, I would say, what kind of mask? Think of the word.
Her mask looked more narrow.
Yeah, a narrow, more streamlined mask. You know, a slender-looking mask.
End at the bottom of the mask.
Yeah, it was a more slender-looking mask, and she had a more slender design to herself. And I thought that was a really good step in the right direction, where you could still use the parts to make anything, but when it comes to the specific character, you could easily still tell that it's a female character, and I thought that was really good. As where Gen 1 Wave 1, some people were kind of, like, some people didn't know that, you know, like, some people didn't know that Gally was a girl in Generation 1 right away until they read the comics and the books and the movies and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But they, in my opinion, still, the way that they built everything for Generation 2, I thought was still phenomenal, but,
and then
yeah.
in Wave 3 of the 2016, for the new Toa, they had a different build for the torsos entirely.
Yeah.
They had gears for the on their butts for some reason.
Yeah, I thought that was
also
a little...
allowed for torso movement, like more posability than previous Bionicle sets had.
Yeah.
So that was a different approach, and I really liked that. I mean, a lot of people who make custom Bionicle mocks usually focus on torso posability because, you know, in the movies and the comics, they're usually able to, you know, twist their torso around and stuff. So now they're actually able to do that in set form. So that's actually it's really cool how they did that.
That was definitely a big plus. And I was gonna say, I mean, I think they did do a good job with that kind of that waist or hip movement. But it's like, in my opinion, it's like the only thing that I would have changed about it was nothing that had to do with the actual system itself, but I would have just maybe added a small round gear rather than that kind of that cross kind of, you know. Because I think That way it would have been a little bit more hidden, and you could still use that gear function. But I really do like how with the Ikimu, the mask maker, can't wait to get that thing still. I really
he has like double.
yeah
double,
he has both functions with the arm gear functions, the hip gear functions. He's decked out. I really like that. Yeah.
And also in the Netflix series Bionicle: The Journey to One, there are also a few other builds that they had in the show that are no longer going to be released ever because of the cancellation of Bionicle. For example, the people who were making Makuta, they had like 3 or 4 different builds for Makuta, and so they're doing a Makuta building contest, and whoever wins the contest will receive all the sets from G2.
Yeah.
In like one giant box. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to enter that though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think those things are always tough to really get into, but I mean, in my opinion, they should at least what they should do, in my opinion, is that this is gonna be a contest where they're gonna be receiving all 3 Makuta builds, and as you said, all of Generation 2. But in my opinion, what LEGO should maybe do after that is they should just release like the award-winning Makuta build, like at the one out of the 3 that was the best. If they do decide to do something like that, to release the best build out of those 3 to be on the LEGO shop website, so it can be purchased to the rest of the public, but only for a limited time. I think would be a good idea.
And not only that, they also had the Mask of Creation in set form on their Makuta builds for the Netflix series.
Oh, wait, and not
that was
creation.
another thing that really shocked me, is that they have the Mask of Creation in set form, but they haven't released it to the public.
I mean the ultimate power, because creation's Ikimu's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to correct you on that now, so no one be in the comments be like, wait a minute, don't you mean the Mask of Ultimate Power?
Yeah, Mask of... I thought I said that. Sorry.
You said creation, but it's all good. Yeah.
Alright, so
I got your back.
Power. Alright, we have the Mask of Creation and the Mask of Control in set form now, but we've all been waiting for the Mask of Ultimate Power.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to do it like the first year they had the Mask of Creation, the second year they'd have the Mask of Control, and then the third one they'd finally have the Mask of Ultimate Power and Makuta, like a Titan build in set form. But also they had Makuta in the Protector size form as well.
Yeah.
And he had a different torso layout than Akimu in the Netflix series.
Yeah. I mean, I did see that, actually. I did see a small... I actually haven't gotten around to watching the Netflix series even, yet, because problem that sucks is I don't have I don't have Netflix on my Xbox, and only certain people in my house have Netflix, because, limited to, a certain amount of devices where you have to pay more, so, it sucks. So I'm not going to go into it, but... from what I've been able to see from just watching some quick tidbits here and there on YouTube and everything, I really like the idea of having that mask maker version of Makuta, because I believe for anybody that's an Origins collector, I believe it's a really good idea to kind of have the past, present, and future for, all these sets. I think it's... Yeah.
I really did think they were going to do something like that as well. Like, they were going to have, a flashback set with Akimu and Makuta or something like that. That would have been that would have gotten a lot of good attention.
Yeah. Well, and but also back onto topic, because it seems like right now we've pretty much covered everything good about Generation 2. We've pretty much shown that it has a lot of potential. It still has, because it's going to be canceled at the end of 2016. So as far as now, Bionicle is still alive, but not for long. And it's in my opinion, one thing that really crushed Bionicle this time around wasn't the sets, and it really wasn't, it had nothing to do with, it had nothing to do with the sets. Sorry,
it had to do with the sales. They weren't selling that well.
It wasn't selling, and one of the reasons why I believe it wasn't selling is because with things like the release of the Lego Movie, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but with the release of things like the Lego Movie, which was really good, and also with Lego Dimensions, and with the Batman movie coming out, Lego Batman movie, my bad.
Yeah.
And with things like that, kids nowadays are more focused towards the bricks of Lego rather than the construction sets. And, I mean, it's alright. It shows that there's still a market in that people still love Lego. But what happens is, I believe that when it came to things like Star Wars The Force Awakens, a lot of people that were new to Star Wars, a lot of newer kids that were new to the whole franchise, after seeing The Force Awakens and becoming fans of it, a lot of them were easily able to depict characters outside of the movie. And so we have the construction sets of some of the characters from The Force Awakens, like we have the First Order, First Order.
We have the First Order Stormtrooper, Captain Phasma, Kylo Ren, Finn, Rey, and Poe Dameron.
Yeah, and so kids are able.
And in addition, before those were released, they had sets for General Grievous, Obi-Wan, and Clone Commander Cody.
Yeah.
Jango Fett, Luke Skywalker, and Darth Vader. I have the General Grievous set.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I mean, that set looked awesome, but I mean, actually, they all looked. I think Commander Cody, Darth Vader, and General Grievous have to be some of the coolest ones. I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jango Fett still fits in there because he's a Mandalorian. So I mean, you know, but it's like when kids watch Star Wars, they can just go to the store and they see these construction sets of the characters that they really have gotten attached to, and they're like, oh wow, I'm gonna get this, and because they're easily able to identify with it. But as with Bionicle, it wasn't as of large scale, there wasn't really anything to give any kid some insight on who these heroes and villains were, and so it's like, what a kid is gonna choose is what they identify with, so it's like they could see Star Wars and they're like, okay, this is relatable, I can see this as something I want to get because I know what it's about. Versus Bionicles are like, okay, well they're, you know, they look alien in a sense to this generation of Lego fans, and and so it's like they don't know anything about it, so why would they take interest in it? So
yeah, people of this generation are more accustomed to seeing what they're most familiar with and not what we're most familiar with.
Yeah, and I think
that's one big issue.
Yeah, I think the other big issue too is in this regard with what we're talking about with familiarities, is that it seems like Lego was expecting the older generation of Bionicle fans to talk about Bionicle to their younger siblings or their relatives, and you know, be like, hey, this is something I grew up with and it was amazing, and then I think they were relying too much on the older fan base to do the advertising for them, which, in my opinion, was, I mean, not too sure if that's what they were aiming towards, but I've heard from other videos on YouTube that that's what it seems like Lego was trying to get across because they made such a big impression.
I mean, it worked for the first year, but the second year it didn't do as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, if Lego really wanted to make construction, like, just a solid Lego construction theme like Bionicle, if they really wanted it to, in my opinion, become bigger than what it is or what it was going to be, if they were able to continue, it would probably do really well. But they would have really needed to pull almost like a Hero Factory or a Ninjago, where they would show a like a Netflix series, like because not a Netflix series, but just a cartoon series. My bad.
Yeah, like Lego Ninjago it's still around. It hasn't even gotten canceled yet.
Yeah.
Because of all of its advertisement. It even has its own Cartoon Network series.
Yeah.
It's had that ever since it was first released. And I gotta admit, it is a good series. And a good theme overall. But I've only ever gotten some of the sets. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's
but
like
the way they advertised it was probably on a more moderate scale than most Bionicles stuff.
I mean,
like the Legends of Chima was also trying to be on the same level as Ninjago was, but ultimately I think Chima got canceled after a few years.
Yeah, it did, but it did have a good run though, a good solid run from what I've heard from a lot of the Lego community. It did well. I just believe it wasn't just as popular as Ninjago, but it's like one thing that they really didn't do well on is that first Bionicle would have really needed its own show on Cartoon Network in order for it to get noticed by kids. So that's one thing.
So they did air some of the older Bionicle movies on Cartoon Network like years ago.
Yeah, they did.
Like,
I remember those days.
When they had the Mask of Light on, like at the very end, they had a scene that was not in the original version.
Yeah, I saw
it was
that.
A teaser for the next movie.
Yeah, I saw that. I remember that. I freaked out when I saw that.
I was so ecstatic when I saw
Yeah,
that.
that was amazing.
So if they did something like that, then that would have gotten a lot of hype.
Yeah.
It just depended on how good the teaser was and how good the final version was in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, that's another way to describe it. I also just feel that, it's, oh god, I just lost my train of thought. That's not good. It's not in the middle of a podcast. No! Oh, I think we're on the topic, yeah, we're definitely on the topic of still cartoon series and stuff, and
Yeah.
I think definitely that Lego would have needed to go that route with Bionicle. If they,
I mean, when
really should've.
Generation 1 ended, they had Hero Factory, which did the same kind of advertisement.
yeah,
But they had a show on Nicktoons
Yeah.
first, and then it went to like a web series a
Yeah.
little bit afterwards.
I mean, Hero Factory, I think, I'm not trying to blame Hero Factory here, and I'm not biased against Hero Factory, because Silk Construction, in my opinion, some of the parts that were in Hero Factory are really good for mock making.
They are.
Yeah.
The story sucked.
Yeah, the story sucked. But the thing
That's
about,
like the one thing. Like,
Yeah.
some of the sets were really cool to look at.
Yeah,
but
I do
overall,
agree.
the story was not fun to follow.
yeah,
It wasn't as interesting as Bionicle was.
yeah, I think,
It's not as interesting as Ninjago is.
yeah, I figured out why that is the case. I just realized it. Is that I was going to say, that the reason why I believe Bionicle didn't become as interesting as something like Ninjago, for example, is because the writer was different. And the thing is Greg Farsty, if I am correct.
Farsty.
Yeah, Greg Farsty. Yeah, sorry if I butchered his name. I'm terrible.
It's alright.
He actually, I believe he writes stuff for Ninjago. I believe he does. I'm not really too sure on that,
Well,
but
actually, let me look that up.
yeah, I'm not too sure about that, but I believe when I was at like a small convention or whatever, because Greg Farsty, he used to actually visit some of the libraries. He used to visit some libraries and kind of share his insight on Bionicle and stuff, and I was lucky enough to go to one of those events. And I think I'm not too sure if it was too. Actually, no, it wasn't back then. My bad. I'm kind of confusing some timelines. But I believe, he did say some stuff that he does do writing for multiple franchises. He even does his own stories. But I believe also he was in a interview with TTV at one time. And during his interview with TTV, he did say something about writing for Ninjago, I believe.
Yeah, I'm looking here on Wikipedia. It says Varsity is the author of over 80 books, including novels set in the Bionicle, Exoforce, and Hero Factory universes, the Ninjago graphic novel series, short stories for Chima and Ninjago, and the Bionicle comic series.
Yeah.
So he has written stuff for Ninjago and Chima.
Yeah.
So he's had some influence in the other themes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
So he wrote the graphic novel series for Ninjago, and it's a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah. I believe that the reason why I don't believe as far as I know, Greg didn't really have too much of an impact on what happened in Generation 2. I know they did credit him.
It was only inspired by his work.
Yeah,
it was based on characters created by, I believe, Greg Farsty.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I believe
Did he create those characters? I'm still not sure.
I'm not really too sure how the creative process was behind Bionicle, but I believe though that in the ending credits to the cartoon stuff, not the Journey to One, But it is said that like original concept by Greg Farsty, Christian Faber, and this one other guy.
Yeah.
But I believe where Gen 2 really lacked was definitely story. It's because in my opinion it was not as in depth or emotional, and it didn't really allow kids to essentially grow attached to their favorite Toa if they even had a favorite Toa at all. I remember I was one of those kids that actually did read some of the Bionicle books back in the day, and I forget the name of the first book, but it was one with Tahu on the front cover of it. And I remember that it was in the first book, it had to do with the Toa washing up to shore, and you were able to get a sense of what they were thinking. Like, you know, the whole idea of why they were here. No, I'm not making a Rooster Teeth reference. And
Well, too late. You just did.
yeah, I just did. I just did. But it's just people back then were able to get like more attached to these characters, and
everyone had their favorite character. Everyone had their favorite Toa. My
Yeah.
favorite Toa of all time is Toa Gali. I have all 5 versions of her, including Mata, Nuva, Mystica, and G2 Mata, G2 Nuva.
oh my god, you lucky bitch.
Why, like, Gali Nuva is the only Nuva set I have,
Yeah, I
other
mean,
than Taka Nuva. But I lost all the golden pieces, so I have to put silver on him. It still looks cool though.
I would have to say that in terms of my favorite Toa, it's like Gali was the first Toa I ever received back in 2001. She was my very first Bionicle. And
My first Bionicle was the Red Rockshi Turok.
oh,
if I'm saying
nice.
it right.
That's not bad. It's not a bad first Bionicle by any means. Yeah.
My first ones were like 4 of the Rockshi, so.
Yeah. And I mean, it was Gali Mata. That was my first ever Bionicle. And I mean,
Yeah.
I have to say that, like, Gali as well, she holds a special place in my heart for how she was my very first Bionicle, still is, always will be. And that's not only that, but I mean, it also, in my opinion, she's the one that has honestly experienced the most change throughout her designs. I honestly do believe that.
And she's also been a big part in a lot of the story as well.
Yeah. They did do a great job developing her as a character. And then
They did a great job overall with character development in the first generation.
Oh yeah, they really did.
I think another thing that made Generation 2 fail was like some of the lack of major character development.
Yeah, because
it wasn't a complicated story, which is fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
But you gotta have at least some chemistry between the characters.
I mean,
like some form of character development.
It's also another thing too is, it's like in some sense when it came to Bionicle Generation 2, it actually felt like it was supposed to leave off from Generation 1 in some way, and I'll get into that later. But I have this crazy theory.
Because they said that these heroes were from another time and
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, and
So basically, they must have been like, hold on a second.
yeah.
Hold on.
I'll just continue talking while you're looking something up because I think that's what you're doing. It's just one thing that I remember from Generation 1.
Alright, I have to be right back.
Alright, so I'll just continue to I'll just talk to these guys while you're taking care of that. So anyways, guys, when it came to Generation 2, one of the biggest problems is I felt that the mystery of Bionicle wasn't exactly there in Generation 2. I mean, I that's how I honestly think. Just because the story was just too straightforward, and also another thing too is the way that they presented it. Everything from the music to.
Alright, I'm gonna have to be back in just a second. Just keep talking about how Bionicle G2 did.
Yeah.
What G1.
And so, I got you.
Some way or another.
I got you. So,
I'll be right back real quick.
Alright. So, it's like with Generation 2, it's like they didn't really have that kind of mysterious music. It didn't really present the Toa in a mysterious way. It was very straightforward with how the Toa crashed and how they came out of the, out of those rocks. They were rocks. They weren't even canisters that fell from the sky. And it's like in order to make a good story, you have to build speculation and you have to build interest. And I believe that wasn't exactly there with Generation 2. There wasn't enough mystery, there wasn't enough speculation, there wasn't enough interest, because interest is ultimately what you generate off of those two. The thing about it is that, speaking from how a kid thinks, is that kids are very adventurous. They always want to find answers to the questions they ask. And it's something that later on in our lives, we still remain curious and we still remain, I would say, adventurous, but not as much as when we are smaller. And so the thing is that in order to spark the imagination of a child, you have to build that interest, you have to build that mystery, and you have to have it be such a great impression on them that they're going to want to see it through. And that's what Generation 1 did. Generation 1 did this from the commercials to even the shorts. The very first CGI shorts of Toa washing up the shore. All that played a big part.
I'm back.
So, alright, I'll fill you in on what I was saying.
Blame my mom.
Alright.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what I was telling the viewers was that I believe where Generation 1 succeeded over Generation 2 was the fact that it's like, in order to spark the interest of a child, you need to, really get a sense of what a child's mentality is like. Children, they're very adventurous. They want to find answers to things, and they want to, and whatever is mysterious, interesting, and really cool to them, they're going to want to seek out and find answers to. And it's like with Generation 1, it had all of that, from its very mysterious commercials to the way, because all the commercials for Generation 1 Wave 1 Toa were very mysterious. It was super cool. And it's like, sometimes you would have to watch those trailers multiple times in order to really get a sense of what's going on, which is what made them great. And also the music, too. Even the music in the cartoon shorts that were for Generation 1 to even the CGI scenes. Yeah. It's like the music, the tone of it was super mysterious. But as with Generation 2, what we got was rocks falling from the sky, the Toa coming out of them, asking who the heck are they, and then after that, the Protectors explaining it to them. The Toa didn't get a sense to have time to figure out who they were. It was just, the Protectors just came up and said, well, you are Tahu, Master of Fire, you're here to vanquish evil, and that's your job, so go do it. That's pretty much what it was. There wasn't enough questioning involved, and the thing is that kids, it's like, I don't know, but I've seen this with many forms of media too, from even the cartoon shows nowadays. They're just so, it's like there's no lessons to be learned, there's no real substantial story, and the cartoons are very silly nowadays. Which is all well and good, but the thing is that kids aren't stupid. They're not stupid. Kids are kids in some sense. There are some kids that are even smarter than adults, and I mean there are probably some kids that are even smarter than me, and you. And I mean there's people smarter. There's always going to be somebody smarter than another person. But the thing is that it's like kids don't want to be treated like they're dumb individuals. Kids want to be treated like they are. Kids want to be treated with a sense of maturity, which comes with an idea of a kid-friendly but mature story, which is what Bionicle offered, the Generation 1. Generation 2 didn't necessarily offer that, and that's what didn't keep the kids interested, and I believe that was another big problem. So, yeah. I mean...
And also, the person who did the music for the movies, Nathan Frost, has been releasing... he released 2 of the original songs or themes that he did for the Bionicle movies. The first one was for The Mask of Light, and the second one was for Legends of Metro Nui. But also, you can look for the entire soundtrack of all the movies, including the really crappy one, but still interesting one, on YouTube.
Yeah.
And also, they even have like a website, forgot what it was, but they have the soundtrack there as well. Let me look for it on Biosector 01.
Yeah.
Music.
It's like one thing that, what was I gonna say? the music for
Oh,
Bionicle.
Biomedia Project, that's what it's called.
Yeah, music for Bionicle is really good too. One thing though that I didn't necessarily like too much about Generation 2 is the fact of Ikimu's position in the Generation 2 universe. And this is why. Ikimu is an amazing character, in my opinion. He has a lot more mystery, he has a good sense of lore, he's also a very strong character too, and he's definitely, in my opinion, one of the coolest characters in Generation 2.
But he is no Matanui, that's for sure.
He's not Matanui, and the thing is that what they did is that Matanui was looked at as a god in the Bionicle universe. He essentially was. And the thing is that with Ikimu, you don't get this godlike vibe off of him. He's more along the lines of he's just a very, very talented and very skilled warrior. And that, his job is to make masks. And the thing is that's all well and good. But in my opinion, if they really wanted to make a better Bionicle story, if they even go through with the idea of a Generation 3, if LEGO decides to ever do this in the future, if they did a Gen 3, is want to combine aspects of G2 and Gen 1 together. So it's like, what you have is Ikimu the Mask Maker, but he serves directly under Matanui, where Matanui is the all-powerful great being, but Ikimu is more along the lines of being like in the same ranks as Axon and Brudako were in Generation 1. Where it's like, he's like one of those really high and very prestigious characters that serves directly under Matanui.
And in the G1 story, despite how kind of bad The Legend Reborn was, it was still a Bionicle movie, and it still had to do with the regular story.
Yeah.
So, like, when Matanui was stranded on the surface of Bar Magna in the Mask of Life in this small body, he felt alienated from what he was usually used to. So even that movie had character development. It took time for Matanui to get used to his surroundings and to get used to all what was going on and to practice his skills as a warrior, but also learn what it was like to be a Toa.
Yeah.
Just like a regular Toa.
Yeah, and also the idea too of, it's like, as you said, he went from being like a 700,000 mile tall robot to being like an average sized person. And that, it's like having that sense of what this, it's just, in my opinion, character development in G1 was phenomenal. Oh yeah, by the way, if any of you guys hear my cat in the background, I'm sorry.
They were planning to go even further with Generation 1. They were gonna go to one of the other planets, the jungle planet. I think it was Boda Magna.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boda Magna. They were gonna go there, but due to limits of like what LEGO had and the fact that they weren't selling as well, this was also the reason why G1 ended like G2, because they weren't selling as much at near the end.
Yeah.
So they had to find a way to end the story in a good way. But the Bionicle star sets are quite controversial.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, they're basically the 2008 Matoran sets and the 2009 Agori sets.
Yeah.
But with the faces and bodies of 6 different characters. 3 of which,
Yeah,
3 or 4 of which actually sparked nostalgia.
Yeah, like the
which
Paraka,
was Tahu, Takanuva, the Rakshi, and the Paraka.
Yeah.
The Skrull and Gresh were kind of confusing.
Yeah, in my opinion, the Gresh model they made before, just the original Gresh.
Yeah, the original Gresh was great.
Yeah, he was
really good. One of the first ones I got.
Yeah.
And then the model that they did for Kina for the Glatorian Legends was also very slender, and it showed that she was a female character. Like. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did do a good job. Overall, LEGO has done a phenomenal job, but I think what it all narrows down to as to why Generation 2 didn't do as well is just marketing. It's all it came down to. It just seems like it seems like Lego didn't really just want to put in the time and money or effort into really getting Bionicle out there and sparking the interests of the children of today.
But at least they took a chance and did. And
Yeah.
it got a lot of good reception.
Yeah, I mean, for the older fans like you and I, I mean, honestly, I do have to thank Lego in a sense for doing this, allowing kids to have the opportunity to experience something that they weren't able to experience, and for bringing something back bringing something that it was more than just a toy and more than just a Lego. Bringing back Bionicle was bringing back many people's childhoods and dreams, and it became a part of a generation's lifestyle, pretty much.
Bionicle, I grew up with it. I couldn't shut up about Bionicle growing up.
Oh yeah.
I still can't shut up about Legos, especially Bionicle. But, I mean, as time goes on, you realize not everyone likes what you like, but the people that do like what you like are still out there.
Yeah, very
so
true.
You gotta, it's all about meeting the right people and sharing interests and what they've experienced.
And so, in some sense, what the Bionicle community has to do is I'm not really too. This is probably the first video I've ever really done officially about Bionicle. So the thing is that if this is like my hello into the Bionicle community or the Lego community, of course I want to say hello there, and to all of us that really do care about Bionicle, care about Lego, and care about the future lines that come, I believe when it comes to Bionicle specifically, we should continue to share our stories, we should continue to build mocks, we should continue to all express our thoughts and feelings upon the original story and Generation 2, and we should keep the legend going, because the thing is just like what happened with Star Trek. Star Trek was dead, or not really dead, but it was like dormant for a while, still having a good fan base, but then these newer movies came around and it came back to life. Bionicle, in my opinion, in some sense, maybe it was too soon for Bionicle to make a return, or maybe it was too late. But either way, let's continue the journey, let's continue this legacy that Bionicle left behind, let's keep it alive, and let's hope it does make a third return, and let's hope that third return is better.
If it doesn't, then we'll just have to keep it alive as we've always done.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there is still a lot of potential for Bionicle, and another thing too is, I mean, the way that copyrights and licenses work is they stay active for 100 years, or as long as the creator is still alive, I believe. So the thing is that if we really have this much time, we're nowhere even near the time when that license for Bionicle would be out the window. So it still has an opportunity to come back. But in order for it to come back, then we all still have to do this too, is that we have to support construction sets. We have to support the Star Wars ones, the Chima ones. Actually, I think the Chima ones never even made it to the shelves, but just...
No, the Chima ones did.
Oh, they did?
I have one of them, but it's in pieces.
Yeah, but I mean, we have to support construction as a whole, not just Bionicle, in order for something like Bionicle, or even if it's something like Bionicle, or if it is Bionicle, to ever make a return. It's just a
Which
fact.
brings us to one last question. What will replace Bionicle Generation 2?
Not Hero Factory! No!
Definitely not Hero Factory. If it is Hero Factory, I'm going to smash my head with a box full of Legos and say,
Well,
why?
do you know what might be promising, actually?
What?
Maybe if they made Ninjago construction sets based off of the ninjas. Have some...
There were bootleg ones, actually.
There
but
were.
If Lego does make those, like officially, then we're in for a good time.
Yeah, I mean...
But also, I think people need something new to follow.
Yeah.
Like something like Bionicle, but not entirely. Like something different.
Yeah.
So something that's inspired, not like Hero Factory, nothing like Hero Factory, but inspired by the success and the very essence of Bionicle.
Mm-hmm.
and maybe something like that could have people get into it.
Yeah. Or maybe we could also expect is it's like if Bionicle were to still be a thing, even after the official cancellation or whatever of Generation 2, if Bionicle were to continue in some way, maybe the idea is to continue it from a different angle of sorts. In some sense, Bionicle, whether if it was Generation 1 or Generation 2, the thing is that Bionicle became a more mature story as things went on. And Generation 2, in some sense, I believe it was more along the lines of fan service for the Generation 1 fans. Bringing something back.
Generation 2 was more kid-friendly than Generation 1.
Yeah.
Generation 1 was definitely very dark and pretty much adult-like.
Yeah, it was.
So that's one of the things about Bionicle. It was actually one of the first LEGO themes to ever do something like that, to make a very dark and mature story, and to even kill characters off.
Yeah, like
for
on
example,
screen.
In the Takanuva stories, they freaking cut a character in half.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's dark.
Yeah.
For LEGO. That's like dark for LEGO.
That was Toa 2 yet that I believe. Well, an alternate
yeah,
Toa 2 yet. Yeah.
That died. Like she was one of the other characters, but she never got a set. But I'm pretty sure people.
Yeah, there's been fan
found a way
made.
to
There's been
make
fan made
a
ones.
mock.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like if Bionicle were to continue, I believe what they should do is they should stick to that more mature audience. Maybe make it one of the first like mature LEGO themes. Maybe.
I mean, even the movies were dark. They were very mature. I mean, the very tone and the looks of the characters were scary. Like, when it came to the villains, they were scary. They looked menacing. And the Rakshi were definitely nightmare-inducing.
Yeah, they
and
were.
Even Makuta was nightmare-inducing.
Yeah.
This Makuta was, like, I don't know, something from a current Cartoon Network show. Like, seriously, it's...
Yeah. I mean, it's like that's.
But that doesn't mean he looked cool.
Yeah, and
that doesn't mean he didn't look cool.
And it's like by bringing up the idea of darkness and evil, it's not a bad thing. In order to make a story great, we do need to have a dark evil. We need to have because the more evil something is, it only makes the better things that are good stand out even better. And it's and the thing is it's like. Kids don't have a sense of what being a hero is. Bionicle gave the sense of what being a hero is supposed to be. It has to deal with coping with loss. It has to deal with being able to get out there and do things yourself or do things together as a team to do something for the greater good for like all the right and moral reasons. Bionicle Bionicle Generation 1 showed kids what it meant to be a hero. And that's something they didn't express in Generation 2. The sheer severity of the situation of what was happening in Generation 1 with Makuta and the Dark Hunters, all those guys. I mean, like, those guys against the Matoran and against the Toa, it was a severe situation within the Bionicle universe of what was going on. And they were dark times. And the thing is it's those stories that made the Toa so legendary, being able to take down such powerful foes that were absolutely nightmarish. And it's Generation 2 didn't have those severities to the universe's people in order to make these heroes shine as what they were really meant to be. It's all about that. It's like it's almost along the lines of what Destiny does in a sense with the Guardians. How it's like the Guardians start out with nothing, how it's literally they don't know anything about the world they're in, but then they learn that there's this dark threat and that this dark threat is doing absolutely terrible things to humanity and the universe.
And they're even nightmare-inducing, so that's a plus. And
that it's up to these Guardians to venture out there into the dark and to come back victorious as heroes and becoming legend. In some sense, the Bionicles, the main Toa, like all the Toa, they all became legendary because of all the terrible things they were able to overcome together as a team. And
in a way, like Destiny does, I've never played Destiny, but I have seen clips of like how the story has evolved in Destiny. It's more immersive and more expanding. And the way that the Guardians are presented now is similar to how the Toa were presented back then in the Bionicle theme.
Yeah.
So in a way, Destiny is like a semi-spiritual successor to G1.
That's actually kind of a crazy way of looking at it, but I do agree.
I know.
And it's like also the idea about Destiny too, and like we're not trying to make this into a Destiny podcast by any means, but it's like in Destiny it had the same concept of what the Toa went through. They had to collect legendary gear, legendary masks or exotics, if you will, to make themselves more powerful to then vanquish even more powerful foes. The idea of training and becoming stronger in order to take down bigger enemies is something that Bionicle Generation 2 didn't have. They didn't, I mean, of course they did evolve, they got new armor, and they were able to become more powerful, but we were never able to see the true extent of their power. When it came to Generation 1, we knew that Gali could create tsunamis and tidal waves that could literally destroy. She was actually the most powerful Toa of the group. She could submerge the entire island of Matanui if she chose to. But she didn't.
But she's better than that.
Yeah.
She's a Toa, not a Makuta.
Yeah, she is in some sense, Gali actually is the more moral, calm, peaceful, and she kind of holds the rest of the group together. She does.
And also, that's one of the things about G2. The characters acted so much differently in G2 than they originally did in G1.
Yeah.
In G2, Gali's like this really misguided individual, but in G1, she is probably the wisest of all the Toa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, like you said, the most powerful.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't like about Tahu's development so much in Generation 2 was the fact that it's like from watching the Netflix series and stuff, it honestly seemed like it was more Tahu giving orders and Anua smashing things. I mean, that's the way it felt to me.
Well, yeah, you do have to watch the Journey to 1 to understand more of what they've been doing.
Yeah. Alright, well, but yeah, I guess we're gonna have to cover more in another podcast because we've been having this going for like 51 minutes right now, so we'll talk more about characters and stuff in a later podcast. Maybe we'll make Bionicle podcasts a more occurring thing on both Numbskill and Cascarab Studios, and we will all talk to you later. If you stuck through the entire podcast and listened to us ramble on about Bionicle and our thoughts and opinions, if you have thoughts and opinions on it also, don't be afraid to comment and leave your thoughts and opinions down below on the story of Bionicle and what you guys thought it was like for yourselves. And
we don't want this to just be about, the two of us talking about Bionicle. We want your thoughts as well, and maybe we'll even share what your thoughts were in a future podcast.
Yeah, we want you guys to become part of this discussion as we are, because we're all Bionicle fans, and the story of Bionicle binds us all together, and let's all keep this alive. So, anyways, this has been Cascarab 9 and Numbskill, and we will all catch you guys later. See you guys.